a working mom, and she goes, it can be incredibly overwhelming. Oh my gosh, I just need a break.
What?
And then we find out she's had a full-time nanny for 5 years.
Wow.
Who takes the kids to school.
What do you guys do at home?
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
4 years, Meghan Markle has shaped her public image with the precision of a Hollywood filmmaker. Every pose, every headline, every so-called candid moment curated like a scene from her own royal screenplay. But when the cameras stop flashing and the mansion doors close, what truly unfolds on the other side? According to one woman who was actually there, someone who saw it, heard it, and lived it, the fairy tale looked very different from the version the world was sold. This isn't just another royal rumor. This is the voice Meghan hoped would never reach the public. The nanny who says that life inside the Sussex household felt less like caring for a child, and more like navigating a meticulously crafted illusion.
Another nanny nightmare for Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
She claims the rules were strange, the atmosphere constantly on edge, and the so-called family moments felt more rehearsed than heartfelt. A stark contrast to Meghan's glowing speeches about compassion and authenticity. This insider offers a completely different portrait, one built on control, secrecy, and a lingering question no PR strategy can cover up.
The nanny that the couple have been relying.
If life with the Sussexes was as perfect as they portrayed, why did the people living inside those walls feel like spectators instead of part of the family? And just when you think the story has reached its peak, it takes an even more startling turn. Because what she says about Archie and Lilibet shifts everything from peculiar to downright shocking. Even before the nanny stepped through the Sussex front door, the job listing itself raised alarms. It didn't read like a standard childcare position, it sounded like a casting notice. Every line was calculated, every requirement strangely specific. She was told Meghan wanted someone discreet, flexible, and unobtrusive. In other words, skilled enough to handle the job, but never noticeable enough to draw attention. Rumors among staff hinted that Meghan didn't want anyone in her home who might overshadow the brand she was carefully cultivating. Applicants whispered that appearance, social presence, even whether someone was single or in a relationship, were quietly sized up behind the scenes.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry had got through 3 nannies in just 6 weeks, and that's because working for this couple is incredibly.
A nanny with her own kids? Too complicated. Someone with a partner? Too risky. The message couldn't have been clearer. Your entire life was expected to orbit around Meghan's. This wasn't a role that simply required professionalism. It demanded loyalty, commitment, and near-constant devotion. Flexibility didn't mean adjusting a schedule, it meant being available at all hours. Late-night calls, non-stop readiness, and absolutely no personal space became the unspoken rules. What should have felt like joining a family instead resembled working inside a private institution, where one misplaced comment could end everything instantly. Even stranger, candidates were warned that time with the children would be dictated solely by Meghan. No set hours. No spontaneous affection. No natural connection. Only structure, silence, and strict control. She nearly declined the job, until one line in the description grabbed her attention. All activities within the residence are subject to observation. She had no idea just how literal that statement truly was.
Once the agency creates a list of potential hires, you meet with that nanny. Then you have to meet with another one of Meghan's assistants. These are 2 separate auditions. Then you sign an NDA, which grants you access to Harry and Meghan. So this is the 3rd interview.
When the nanny arrived at the Sussex residence, she expected a standard interview, not an audition carried out under watchful eyes. From the moment she walked inside, something felt wrong. The house was perfect, spotless, but unnervingly silent, almost as if the atmosphere itself had been staged. She was instructed to go through a normal trial day, observe the home, get familiar with the routine, stay calm and natural. What no one bothered to mention was that every movement she made was being monitored. Hidden cameras tracked how she walked, how she spoke, even the way she smiled. Only later did she discover this wasn't routine security. This was Meghan's personal system for evaluating staff, studying them like characters in a production. If someone appeared too self-assured, they were deemed difficult. If they were too quiet, they were seen as lacking presence. The goal wasn't simply to hire a nanny, it was to find someone who could disappear seamlessly into Meghan's perfectly crafted world. When the official interview finally took place, Meghan's questions felt less like inquiries about childcare and more like psychological tests. How do you handle being corrected? How do you react when people misunderstand your intentions? Subtle, yet unmistakable. It became clear the role required emotional compliance, not just competence.
The agency has specifically been instructed to hide Harry and Meghan's identity from the applicant. They just want to make sure you're comfortable working with Meghan because of her reputation.
By the end of the day, the nanny realized she hadn't simply visited a household, she had stepped onto a set. And like any production, there was one unmistakable director. From the outside, the Sussexes appeared unified, a modern couple forging their own path. But inside their California home, the quiet tension told a different story. According to those familiar with the dynamic, their visions of family life didn't always align. Harry, shaped by a lifetime of structure and tradition, believed the children should have the same level of professional care he'd known growing up. He reportedly favored a classically trained Norland nanny, discreet, experienced, and rooted in royal protocol. To him, that meant stability and continuity. Meghan, however, was said to prefer a more contemporary approach. She wanted someone who matched her California sensibilities, relaxed, modern, socially aware, and far from the rigid mold of royal tradition. The disagreement wasn't really about childcare qualifications. It was about identity. Harry's world revolved around duty and consistency. Meghan centered on independence, image, and reinvention. Even small details, a nanny's accent, wardrobe, demeanor, became symbolic of the larger divide. Those close to the situation described the conversations as calm but strained, polite smiles covering frustration, long pauses speaking louder than arguments ever could. Harry would reference the warmth and steadiness he associated with his childhood routines. Meghan emphasized personal boundaries, privacy, and a break from tradition. In the end, Meghan's preference prevailed. The formal uniforms vanished. The structured royal style of childcare faded. What remained was a household shaped unmistakably by her vision, curated, aesthetically flawless, and tightly managed.
I'm working so hard. Is she really? Or is she just saying she is?
Well, according to their tax documents, they work 1 hour a week.
Harry adapted, but those close to him could see the change. The nanny, standing silently at the center of it all, began to understand that this wasn't just a household, it was a brand. And inside those walls, even love seemed to require approval. Among the quiet whispers that drifted through the Sussex home, one topic stood apart, something no one dared to speak openly. As the nanny worked long hours inside the mansion, she began to notice something unusual. Despite being present almost every day, there were no signs of an expectant mother. No morning visits from doctors. No prenatal check-ins. No maternity clothing in the laundry. No preparations for an upcoming baby. At first, she brushed it off as Meghan's intense desire for privacy. But as weeks turned into months, the silence grew impossible to ignore. Staff exchanged uneasy glances but avoided any direct questions. And when the public photos appeared, images showing Meghan with a visible baby bump, confusion quietly spread among those who lived behind the scenes. The nanny later admitted she didn't want to believe the rumors. But nothing matched, she recalled. What the world was seeing wasn't what we saw inside the house. Some staff were quietly warned not to comment, told that certain matters were not to be discussed. The atmosphere grew heavy, as if the truth itself was locked away behind those immaculate walls. For a woman who built her image on authenticity, these contradictions were unsettling. And for those who lived through it, one question lingered like an echo in an empty nursery. What exactly were they protecting, privacy or perception?
I'm a great mum, I'm a great wife, I'm a great friend, I'm also incredibly modest. I mean, what a boaster. Stop boasting about yourself. What's wrong with her? She is racked with epic insecurity, isn't she?
Weeks turned into months, yet something about the Sussex home felt strangely incomplete. The rooms were immaculate, almost museum-like, too perfect for a house meant to echo with the laughter and chaos of small children. The nanny looked for any sign of Archie or Lilibet, scattered toys, crayon marks, fingerprints on a window, tiny clothes in a laundry basket. But there was nothing. No bedtime routines. No crying in the night. Not even a forgotten pacifier tucked behind a couch cushion. It was as if the idea of children existed, but not their presence. She wondered whether the children stayed elsewhere for privacy. But even on days when staff whispered about family visits, the house remained eerily still. Meals were prepared but untouched. The playrooms stayed locked, like set pieces waiting for a photo shoot that never happened. The silence became louder than any sound. Staff spoke carefully, eyes flicking toward the ever-present cameras. No one wanted to be the first to ask the forbidden question. One housekeeper finally whispered, "Everything here is managed, even what we're supposed to believe." For the nanny, the unease grew unbearable. The public saw a warm, loving family. But inside those walls, she saw a performance without an audience. And the more she searched for normal traces of family life, the more convinced she became that something essential, something human, was missing. This home had children in its narrative, but not in its reality. When the Sussex Netflix documentary premiered, the nanny watched like everyone else, but to her, it felt surreal. The glossy family moments, the cozy rooms, the warm lighting, none of it matched the house she knew. The living room decor was different. The windows faced a different direction. Even the sunlight fell across the furniture in a way she had never seen. "That wasn't our house," she whispered to a former co-worker. "At least, not the one we worked in."
But trust me, this is all part of Meghan's sinister plan to commercialize her children, to pimp them out for financial gain, and I'm not being sucked in by it at all.
Scenes showed Meghan cuddling Archie, Harry laughing in a sun-drenched California garden. Soft music underscored their smiles, creating the perfect picture of family life. But for those who had actually spent time inside the estate, something felt off. Too tidy. Too perfectly lit. It didn't look like real home footage. It looked like a commercial for domestic bliss. The nanny paused on a single frame, Meghan sitting on the floor, toys scattered around her. To viewers, it seemed intimate. To her, it looked staged. The background didn't match the layout she had memoized from cleaning every surface. Even the children's laughter sounded edited, too clear, too conveniently placed. The realization was chilling. If the documentary wasn't capturing reality, what was it protecting? What was truth, and what was carefully produced to be believed? As the credits rolled, she couldn't shake the thought. The show wasn't documenting life. It was inventing it. Working in the Sussex household had never felt like caring for a family. It felt like existing inside a controlled fortress. From the moment staff arrived, personal phones were surrendered. Every visitor, cleaner, and gardener passed through multiple checkpoints, their devices sealed in opaque pouches before entering. Conversations were restricted to work. Anything beyond that, even casual small talk, could be seen as overstepping. The nanny recalled how even the air seemed monitored. Cameras tracked hallways, doorways, and outdoor paths. There were whispers that microphones had been discreetly placed in certain rooms for safety, but staff felt differently. It felt like constant surveillance. People stopped confiding in one another. Friendships dissolved into stiff politeness. Even asking, "How are you?" could risk a warning. Meghan's demand for privacy, the nanny realized, had become an obsession, one that blurred the line between protection and paranoia. Even Harry, once easygoing and warm, appeared withdrawn under the weight of tension. His laugh, when it came, echoed briefly down a corridor and then vanished, as if it weren't allowed to linger. By the end of each day, staff left silent, exhausted, uneasy. The home that promised peace had become a stage built on secrecy. And behind those perfectly trimmed hedges, trust had become the rarest luxury of all.
Archie and Lily have finally been unmasked. Oh, H, they're already out there. They're already out there, H. So of course I've got to use them to sell my clothes, to sell my wine, to sell my makeup, to sell whatever else comes next, probably children's clothing at some point.
The nanny began to notice a pattern, one that felt increasingly deliberate. Every time cameras or photographers were scheduled to visit, the atmosphere inside the house shifted. Rooms that had sat untouched for weeks suddenly bloomed with flowers and toys that hadn't been there before. Blankets appeared neatly folded on chairs. Books were arranged just so. Framed family photos materialized as if by magic. It wasn't natural chaos. It was a set being staged for a scene. One morning, a private family shoot was scheduled. The children were supposedly present, yet the house remained silent. No giggles. No cries. No movement upstairs. When the photographers arrived, Meghan appeared radiant, calm, collected, camera ready. Every smile, every glance, every small gesture seemed rehearsed. She looked down tenderly, then turned subtly toward the lens. To the nanny, it wasn't motherhood. It was marketing. Later, when the famous chicken coop photos surfaced, Meghan and Harry feeding hens with the children, staff exchanged uneasy glances. None of them remembered that moment actually happening. The setting felt familiar, but the children in the images did not. It became clear, the family scenes weren't captured, they were constructed. Each snapshot, each smiling frame, served a narrative, not a memory. As she scrolled through the glowing headlines praising Meghan's real family life, the nanny felt only a quiet chill. Behind those perfect images, reality had long been cropped out. In the end, her story isn't about revenge. It's about years spent inside a home where truth was filtered through image. She stepped forward not for fame, but for peace. Her account may never appear in glossy interviews or polished documentaries, but it lingers, raw, unsettling, and unfiltered. What she described wasn't malice, but heartbreak. A quiet observation of how authenticity can vanish beneath the flash of a camera. For all the glamour, privacy, and power, the most haunting thing inside those walls wasn't scandal, it was silence. And perhaps that's the real revelation. Sometimes the stories we're shown aren't meant to inform us, they're meant to protect the people crafting them. If this account leaves you questioning what's real and what's rehearsed, don't miss what came before. In our previous investigation, how Harry reacted as Sarah Ferguson revealed Meghan's yacht days with Andrew, the puzzle pieces of Meghan's carefully shaped past begin to fall into place. So before you go, watch it now on the Palace Scoop, where the truth behind the headlines is always just one story away.